I want to talk about puja, chanting, bowing, and their relationship with the first stage of enlightenment, known as sotapanna in the Pali language, or often referred to in the West as stream entry. Now, I have spoken at some length with regards to the 4 stages of enlightenment previously, and you can refer back to those videos, but I will clarify this first stage of enlightenment in some more detail now. I'm just trying to get, a little more comfortable. Not comfortable. I think I'll stay like that for a minute. This isn't very comfortable, this rock. It's great for meditating if you sit in full lotus, because the rough surface isn't then so abrasive, spiky, because only soft bits are touching the surface. In full lotus. In half lotus, or what we call Burmese position, which is where your legs aren't on top of each other, your ankles tend to rub on the very coarse, I think, limestone. So it's not so comfortable. I'll move in a minute. Let me get talking first. The point being, the first level of stage of enlightenment, known as sotapanna, is where one has dropped the 3 of the 10 fetters, the first 3. The fetters, the 10 fetters, which I've also talked about, I think, before in a previous video. If I haven't, I will. But they are begun with the first 3, which are personality view, or in the Pali Sakkaya Ditthi, or sometimes thought of as ego. Any aspect of doubt with regards to the Buddha's teachings, or the Four Noble Truths specifically, and the abandonment of rites and rituals. So this is where this relationship can often be considered a little at conflict with bowing, puja, chanting, and all what can seem like ritualistic ceremonies that take place in the temples. And that's understandable when you don't understand the nature of what is happening in the temple. Or even if you understand the nature of what is happening in the temple. But I'm going to, I'll try to do with all of this stuff for my own benefit, is I like to break things down as simply as possible, and explain what goes on in the temple. Is it rites and rituals? Is it even necessary? So firstly, whether or not it's necessary is a matter of choice. It's a lot like the teachings of the Buddha. You can go to the extent of really in-depth study of the suttas and go further into the commentaries on the suttas and the Abhidharma, or you can just simply understand the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, some of the main stories in the suttas to help you learn and understand that, and then concentrate on practice. It's very much a matter of choice. It's very much a matter of your personality type, what suits your practice. It's an ultimately flexible set of teachings for all kinds of different people, including lay people and monastics. Even within the monastic order, We have study monks, work monks, practice monks, monks who specialize in languages and translation and really studying the suttas, monks who don't do any of that at all and just simply meditate, and monks who just chant, other monks who like sweeping and making brooms. It varies, like all walks of life. We all have different skill sets and we all have different abilities in different areas. And in any community, one has to maximize the use of your abilities and in the appropriate areas to the betterment and service of the whole community. Now, I fall somewhere in the middle, I think, but I'm not sure. But I've never been too much on the side of what one would call devotional practice. And devotional practice is a lot to do with what you see going on in the temples with the chanting and the pujas. I'll get this right, this top thing, this angsa in a minute. I'm trying not to, I should have perhaps brought my outer robe. It's the wind. It's just the right temperature and the wind keeps the mosquitoes away. I can't do this at this time of the evening or day up at the kuti. It's either too dark inside, as you've probably seen in previous videos, or outside. Well, it gets too dark too in the forest, and the insects. So, at the first level of towards enlightenment, the first stage of enlightenment, sotapanna, stream entry, we firstly need to drop this Sakkaya Ditthi, this personality view. Now, this is essentially what I've been talking about quite a bit recently. It's just an understanding of what that is, that we are not our personalities. This is the abandonment of self, or the understanding of anatta, not self. We are only a result of causes and conditions that are around us, resulting in what we appear to be, what we are, and our own view of that is also as a response from those conditions, what we are experiencing. Simply put us in a completely different environment and we become a different personality with some underlying traits, yes, but can be quite considerably changed over time. And it is this understanding that is one of the steps towards, is one of the fetters that needs to be understood in order to be let go of. So we are tied to samsara through 10 ties, 10 fetters. The first is this personality view. The second is any kind of doubt that the Four Noble Truths are the truth. So having let go of this I am who I am because of what I am, and fully understood that you are what you are as a result of causes and conditions around you, and without those you could be something completely different, and therefore all you are is what knows what you are perceived and perceive yourself to be at any given moment. Having let go of that idea and accepted you have no control over this physical body or even this thinking mind, you are then faced with understanding the truth and realization of the truth. And the Buddha's teachings on the Four Noble Truths are quite simple. There is suffering, a cause of suffering, an end of suffering, and a path leading to the end of suffering, which I'll quickly also confirm because it's not coming up in a bit, that path leading to this end of suffering is also what our practice is, broken down into three categories of sila, samadhi, panya. Sila being moral virtue, samadhi meditation, panya development of wholesome mind states, reduction of unwholesome mind states, or wisdom, and is 8 parts, which are right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. So they are the 8 steps on the path towards understanding fully the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, which is predominantly down to the root defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion. Delusion is really ignorance or not understanding the Four Noble Truths or the faculties of existence, that everything's impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self, but it primarily is made up of this greed and hatred, or wanting and not wanting, or liking and disliking, or aversion, or sensual desire. This is desire. And desire is the root cause of suffering. Now, we don't need to know this Four Noble Truths. It's not a case of knowing it intellectually. It's not a case of being able to explain it. It's a case of actually accepting the truth. It's not even a matter of believing, because the truth is not to be believed. If it is the truth, it is that. You cannot disbelieve truth. Truth is truth. And where there is any doubt in that truth, the Four Noble Truths, but the truth of suffering and the possibility of the end of suffering, then you are not letting go of that tie, that fetter to samsara. So having let go of the tie to this personality, you let go of that doubt about the Four Noble Truths. And finally, you need to let go of rites and rituals. Okay, so that means all these people chanting, bowing, performing puja are not stream enterers. No, that's not true. What it means is not that rites and rituals in themselves are a mistake, are wrong. Firstly, what do I mean by rites and rituals? You'll see people lighting incense, offering light or candles and flowers to Buddha rupas. You'll see people bowing to monks, bowing to Buddha rupas, essentially just statues, yes? You'll see people in temples performing all kinds of bodily acts of body, speech and mind that seemingly are acts of worship or devotion. They certainly are acts of devout behavior, devotion. They are acts of demonstrative faith in the sadhana, in the religion, in the historic establishment of the Buddha's teachings over 2,566 years, through them being passed down via this sangha, this body of monks and nuns, whom descendant from the Buddha's original disciples have carried on this tradition. However, what it means by the abandonment of rites and rituals is, whatever these actions of devotion are, it is your understanding of them which one must come to know and come to realize and appreciate, that if your understanding of these, let's call them rites and rituals, or pujas, or chanting, or bowing, is because you believe these acts in themselves will help you be free from suffering, then those acts in themselves will not do that. It doesn't matter how many flowers you offer to the Buddha Rupa, incense or candles you light. It doesn't matter how many times you bow to the Buddha Rupa, the senior monks, the ajahns, or even the junior monks. It doesn't matter how many times a day you go to the temple and chant the cardinal suttas. These will only affect your mind state in a wholesome way because they are devotional acts of faith, but they will not change the effect of your acts of body, speech and mind, your actions, which are karma, which, good or bad, will be the causes and conditions of what will happen to you in this present moment, in the next moment, in the future, or in future lifetimes. This is our bank of karma we establish through only our acts of body, speech and minds, and are not able to be changed through seeking forgiveness or praying or worshipping. So it often is called prayer in the translation from different languages into English, but it doesn't mean prayer. Prayer is request. You are not requesting. There are certain requests in the ceremonies, but they are requesting, say, a Dharma talk, or requesting a blessing, or requesting to be able to offer dana. You're never requesting a god or even the Buddha to make your father better from his illness, or your son pass his exams, or for you to have good fortune. If you think this is what you're doing, this is rites and rituals that have to be abandoned, not the acts of devotion themselves, the wrong understanding of what they mean. So, starting with bowing one goes into the temple or before a Buddha Rupa. Why do we bow? Or indeed, why do we bow to monks? Why do monks bow to monks? Why do lay people bow to monks? We bow to senior monks, and however senior you are, there's usually a monk more senior than you to bow to. So some very senior monks I know, I've seen bow to even more senior monks. And you think, wow, I'm normally the one doing the bowing. It goes like that. Now this is just a reminder. Firstly, when we're bowing to the Buddha Rupa, Rupa means statue, a form, bodily form. It's either stone, metal, wood. We're not bowing to a lump of stone or metal or wood. We're not even bowing into what it looks like, although it looks beautiful and it's in this repose position and you feel like you want to bow to it. But you are bowing to what it represents. Now it represents our teacher, the Buddha. Then we are also bowing to the Sangha, because our teacher, the Buddha, was a man, not a god. He became an enlightened Buddha, an awakened one. And through his teachings over 45 years, left the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, for all to benefit from, out of his compassion. And we bow out of respect to that individual's memory, but also to remind ourselves of our feeling of gratitude. And there's no better way to let something sink in when you're trying to remind yourself of something, of linking it to a bodily action. And the very act of bowing is a symbol of humility. It is also helping to reduce that personality view or sense of pride, sense of I am such a special person, I am this, I am that, by really getting down and bowing respectfully to something that you truly respect, not because you feel you should. And you should not feel you are bowing to a statue, a lump of rock, stone or metal. You should feel you are bowing to the memory of your teacher. And we have in Buddhism one teacher only. Of course, we can have many more teachers whom are passing on that primary teacher's teachings. So having bowed to the Buddha, because we normally bow 3 times to the Buddha, we also bow to the Dharma, or we pay homage to the Dharma in the chanting, as I'll explain, and the Sangha, because the Sangha are the order of monks and nuns whom are passing on those teachers for us and become our teachers in this modern day. Because without them we couldn't learn the Dharma. We could learn it from books, but we need to learn it sometimes, this kind of thing, from people in also our same era. Although the Buddha's teachings are applicable throughout history, because they are so appropriate and based only on the truth, to some extent they need explaining through the ages to different societies, types of societies, and within different cultures. So we bow to the Buddha, we bow to the Dharma, we bow to the Sangha. But remembering, we're not bowing and we're not holding our hands like this, which is called holding our hands in Anjali, as a prayer, but as respect and a reminder of what it's all about. So we go into the temple and bow. We then chant the Itipiso, which is it's not called that. We chant homage to the Buddha and recollect the 9 qualities of the Buddha. And we then chant homage to the Dharma, recognizing the qualities of the Dharma. And then we chant homage to the Sangha, recognizing the quality of the Sangha, the order of monks and nuns. So I've just covered that, so I don't need to go into that further. Then we usually, at the end of each of those, we do actually bow again on the floor and we ask for some forgiveness for any acts of body, speech and mind we may have done wrong, or that may have been unskillful or unwholesome. We do that 3 times to the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha. Again, it's a case of reminding ourselves and reflecting. These are called reflections. It's not like confession in the sense of how we have confession in the Catholic faith, where we ask for forgiveness from God via a priest and a little punishment of Hail Marys on our rosary to make it all feel better. No, we are reminding ourselves that we have committed some kind of acts unwholesomely of body, speech and mind, or even if we haven't, that we may have unknowingly, and we remind ourselves 3 times in the bowing position of that. It's quick, it's simple, and it really helps you remember your sila, keeping those moral virtues, keeping those 5 precepts of no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or taking of intoxicants. And this is working on that Noble Eightfold Path, because 4 of the Noble Eightfold Path are to do with sila, moral virtue. And then we usually, and this is the general evening format of a puja. Puja actually comes from more Indian culture of the lighting of incense, lights and offering flowers. Lighting of incense, candles and offering flowers. And then some kind of chanting. And it's called puja in Hindu religions as well. So that part's done quite discreetly in this particular monastery, and it can take different forms. Regardless of form, it's the same thing. Here it's very subtle. I don't even notice it going on. In fact, the Mei-Chis take care of that little part sometimes. We do chant these reflections though, all together, and they take this form. And I'm going to sum it up quite quickly. I'm not going through the chanting. You can get a copy of our chanting book in Pali and English with some very nice pictures on a PDF format. If you go to the website, I'll say this twice so you can pause it. I don't know how to put links in and this stuff. What Mark Jan chanting book. If you just Google that, Wat Marp Jan chanting book. It doesn't matter if you spell it incorrectly. Wat Marp Jan chanting book. Now I'm sure I've said 3 times, that should, see, it works. 3 times, it always sinks in. Many religions use 3. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. 3, the Holy Trinity. It happens all over the place. We request things 3 times because it works, helps us remember. If you want to get hold of that chanting book, it's available for free there, PDF, very nice pictures in there. It's where I trained, my first monastery here in Thailand, not this monastery, but it's the same chanting all over Thailand. So you'll see these suttas in there, these chants in there. So after the reflections on Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, we normally then chant, let me get this right, the use of the requisites. This is applicable to mainly monks, but it's also a reminder of the lay people that provide the monks with those requisites, of how we respect those requisites, but also they use these things too. So they're reminding themselves of what it means to use all these, and I'll explain what these requisites are one by one, so you can appreciate what I'm talking about. Primarily, it's the proper use of what we need, as opposed to all of the things we can have in life. Now, monks have just 4 things: robes, or if you were a layperson, clothing, food, shelter, and medicine. They're our 4 requisites provided by the lay people. And we reflect upon those 4 requisites, saying in the chant, I reflect on using these wisely. I can't think what it is at the current moment, and the exact words. But for robes, they're not for looking all cool and smart and dressing up. They're to protect us from bitey insects and mosquitoes. They're to keep us warm or to keep us cool, keep the sun off. They're for practical use. For food, it's not for fattening or for enjoyment, it's just to sustain our lives for another 24 hours. For shelter, it is not for luxury, it's just to keep the elements off us overnight for somewhere to stay. And for medicines, the bare, simplest and rudimentary of medicines will do to keep us free from pain and suffering as best as possible, or to help alleviate any infections or illnesses, but the bare minimum we require to survive. So we reflect upon that. Then we reflect on, get it in the right order. I don't think it matters quite so much the order, but normally then we go on to reflect on the 32 parts of the body. Now, this also, for monks, it's part of our asubha practice, which means not beautiful. So if we have problems dealing with attraction and lust, for instance, we reflect on the bodily parts that are not so pleasant to know about or think about, therefore taking some of the attractive nature of the body away from us and reducing lust. In terms of lay people also, it brings about the understanding of the nature of what these bodies really are and how they are not us, whether we are fit and beautiful and handsome, or whether we are unfit and unbeautiful or unhandsome. It doesn't matter. Our conscious awareness, what knows, is all that matters. This is neither beautiful or unbeautiful. It is neither fit or unfit. It just knows. Puru. Now, we reflect on these 32 parts of the body. They're not anatomically absolutely correct, I suppose. There's probably a lot more. They sum it up, really. And they include all of the nasty bits inside, including undigested food and urine and anything else you can imagine, bones and kidneys and things. They begin with hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth and skin. And this is the mantra that's given to all newly ordained monks, which is Kesa, Loma, Naka, Danta, Tacho in Pali. Hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth and skin. To remind ourselves, I mean, these are the obvious bits we see of any person, that's all they are: hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth and skin. If you take any of those bits and pick a bit off and put it in your dinner, it's not very nice, however beautiful you think that person is. Put some of their hair in your dinner, or mix it up with soap in the plug hole at home, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's not very nice. However beautiful their hair is, it's not very nice. So this is reminding us of that, going through the 32 parts of the body, and that we are just a bag of skin containing these parts. It sounds quite horrible and biological, doesn't it? But if you think about it, yes, it's far from rites and rituals and worship. It's like a biology lesson. It's practical teachings, reflection on this actual life, the truth of this life, the truth of suffering, the truth of getting old, getting sick and dying, the nature of existence, what we're subject to. And that comes next. We reflect on those 5 things to be frequently reflected upon, which I've talked about in the previous videos, which are just that: we're of the nature to get old, we're of the nature to get old, nature to get sick, nature to die. We will be parted from all the things we love, and we are responsible and the result of, and the owners, the heirs to our karma. So all our actions of body, speech and mind are going to do us in. Okay, we are responsible for those. We cannot get away from it, and we reflect on those 5 things. Again, it's not prayer, is it? It's not worship. There's nothing spiritual, magical or mysterious about that. This is exactly what goes on in the evening puja in whatever Buddhist temple you go to around the world. But there are lots of Pali words all around it. In Thailand we quote the Pali word. In some of them it's just Pali, but in some of the reflections where it needs to be explained a lot, and especially for the monks and the lay people, they quote it in the Pali line, Thai line, Pali line, Thailand line. In England they usually do it either in English or Pali, or alternately. In India and Sri Lanka and Burma, I think it's usually just the Pali, and they know it so very well, and hopefully they understand what it means. Now, I don't fully understand all of the Pali. Of course I do of this chanting because I do it every day, but if I see a bit that I don't know, I'm looking at the English line whilst they're saying the Thai line, and I familiarise with myself with them anyway, because these after all are the teachings of the Buddha, so they're very useful. So after reflecting upon those 5 things to be reflected upon, then we move on to dedication of merits. Now this does get a little bit hocus pocus depending on how you think about it, but we are reflecting, this is the truth of it, we're reflecting on the good things we have done, the merits we have earned. Punya, it is referred to in the Pali. Is that the Pali word? Or is that the Thai word? No, boon in Thai, so punya in Pali, which are merits. And if we want to keep it free of any hocus pocus, probably a wrong word to use, but I understand it. I'm sorry if it doesn't make sense. Google it. Magical mystery. But really, by reflecting on all the good things we have done, for instance, going to temples and giving food to monks, or seeing monks on alms round and giving them a little bit of rice, by keeping the precepts, by practicing meditation, by reading the sutras, or to just developing wholesome mind states. These are good actions. This is punya. And we reflect upon this in the Udisana, the reflection on merits, it's called the dedication of merits in English, this chanting, because we then dedicate the good we have done to those that we know, people we know, living and dead, in the past and now, whom perhaps aren't having such wholesome actions to lean back on themselves with their own faith. We can share those merits of our own actions, good actions of body, speech and mind, with those we hold dear to us. So we chant this, and if you read this in the chanting book, it's quite beautiful how it reads. And that is as magical as it gets, really, because this is just really helping us understand and reflect on the benefits of doing good, and how by doing good not only is it directly benefiting people that we're being kind to, or giving service to, or being good to, it is able to be dedicated to all the people we know or have known. And this actually does happen. It is not hocus pocus. If you spend all of your time performing only wholesome actions of body, speech and mind, those people that know you will also benefit, because they will get to know you as a different person to someone who they may know whom doesn't perform actions of wholesome body, speech, wholesome actions of body, speech and mind, or to the contrary, unwholesome actions of body, speech and mind. That person doesn't have such a good feeling about knowing that other person. I hope that makes sense. Then we normally chant one of the reflections or suttas. Here we chant and this is usual, the Buddha's reflections on universal well-being. And that is just wishing metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, all good things, if you like, and a sense of freedom from anxiety, freedom from suffering, freedom from sickness, to all beings. And we reflect upon that in the chanting. And then finally, we reflect, there are things called paritas, which are protective chants. And we might chant this chant of protection, which is maybe a little hocus pocus too, but not so much. As long as you understand, again, you are reminding yourself through this chanting, if you read the words in your own language, you will understand that they are just, again, reminding yourselves of this practice of sila, samadhi and panya results in this good action results in well-being, in the ability to be able to live a content, and ultimately as a result of contentment, happy life through the practice of sila, moral virtue, meditation, samadhi and panya, wisdom. We are benefiting, and we remind ourselves in this reflection. Now that is what happens in evening puja, morning puja, each and every day. Here it's just once in the afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we take the evening puja format and we just chant those particular verses, the same each day. And lay people come, and the same each day they chant, reminding themselves, reflecting upon those teachings of the Buddha, to really help it sink in. So I hope this has been of interest, and I've not bored you with the ceremonial side of Buddhism, because it's actually quite a practical side. It is the way through chanting that these teachings were handed down, firstly, through the Dhammacakka Sutta, which is chanted out here at the monastery by one of the monks and the nuns every morning. I don't go to that because I'd rather be meditating, but he gets up at 4 o'clock and goes into the sala, and the nuns and the novice monk, or the temporary monk that's here at the moment, and they chant this Dhammacakka Sutta, which is the teaching on the Buddha's teachings, his first teachings on the Four Noble Truths. It's called turning the wheel, is what Dhammacakka Sutta means. So again, it isn't worshipping, it's not praying, it's reflecting on the teachings of the Buddha first thing in the morning. And this does get your day off to a good start, if that's what you like. So it's very different to what we're used to when we look at going to church or mosque or wherever your place of worship might be, whatever form it takes, when you really understand the words. Of course, if we just listen to Christian or Catholic ceremonies in Latin and Buddhist ceremonies in Pali, we'd consider them much the same. They look the same to some extent, externally. Candles, statues or crosses, robes. It's quite entertaining in a way, colourful, respectful, religious. But when you read the words in your own language, there's a huge difference. If you take religiosity in terms of praying, asking and believing that these rites and rituals will bring you success, relief, or send you to a better place, then this is wrong view in terms of Buddhism. It is not an unwholesome belief, and there is nothing wrong with that, and I'm not criticizing it. But in Buddhism, we strip away the unnecessary. We're not adding anything to the truth of suffering and the end of suffering. We are reflecting upon that. So even in the most elaborate of Buddhist ceremonies that you may see, that can go on for many hours with many monks, I've been to them, taken part in them. Only recently I was at one, and will be again, I'm sure, soon. Even the coming Wesak celebrations of the Buddha's Day of Enlightenment, birth and death, the main event of the year, which we'll talk about in another time. There's going to be many celebrations around the world, for sure, but all reflecting on this Four Noble Truths, ultimately, suffering and the end of suffering, and not asking for anything more than reminding yourself and recognizing your own good actions of body, speech and mind, how they're benefiting you and benefiting others. And the best you can do for others is to firstly help yourself, to make sure you're strong, both morally and physically, to help others towards the same goal, to be content, resulting in happiness, resulting in freedom from suffering in this lifetime. Looking at my clock, the sun, which is now gone, and the gradually reducing light, I think my time is up. I hope that's cleared things up a little bit in terms of what goes on in the temple. If you have any questions about that, please put them in the comments. If you have any difficulties finding that chanting book, if you want it, again, remind me in the comments and I'll work out how to send you the link. And that is a book that is worth looking through, if not only for the nice pictures. The words are very beautiful also. You don't have to learn the Pali, just the words in English, if that is your own language. And they make a lot of sense because they are the teachings of the Buddha. So before I repeat myself again, I will say thank you for watching. I hope this is useful, and if it is, please use it, and if it's not, then don't.